Hello everyone, and welcome to a boss ranking on Black Myth Wukong. As the anticipation grows around the 2024 Game Awards, I thought it was time to revisit my personal shout for Action Game of the Year, as well as a very real contender for the overall Game of the Year.
What?
Now, given that Black Myth Wukong is something akin to a Souls-like, it only makes sense that I look at the bosses and find out which ones make me the hardest, which ones are the hardest. Now, the issue is that Black Myth Wukong has over 90 bosses, so doing a full game difficulty ranking is going to be nigh on impossible. Not only because the video would be 2 hours long or incredibly undetailed, but because a lot of these bosses are completely interchangeable in terms of difficulty. Yes, this old man is slightly more difficult than this giant frog. So today, we'll be highlighting those who have proven themselves the equal to the equal of heaven, the top 10 hardest bosses in Black Myth Wukong. Just as a quick disclaimer, I'm only talking about these bosses on the standard difficulty playthrough, that is, New Game, because in New Game Plus, well, no boss on the list can really stand up to this. Number 10, Non-Able. This guy's name is blatant bullshit, because I can guarantee he's very able to kick your ass, if my half a dozen deaths at his hands and feet are anything to go by. It's not due to any broken mechanics or cheese on his part. He's just strong and fast with delayed and extensive combos. Stamina management isn't usually an issue in Black Myth Wukong, but against an enemy as fast as this with as many attacks as he has in such a long sequence, if you get into the habit of panic dodging, you can quickly find yourself unable to properly dodge or counter-attack effectively. Phase 1 is hard because reading his feet is trickier than you'd think. Phase 2 is much worse because if you thought he was kicking your ass hard while tied up, imagine what he can do when cut loose. His combos get even longer, he applies more magic or wind attacks to his shots, and his timing is even more erratic than before. This is a frantic fight where you can be quickly put on the defensive with no real way to counter, and if you burn through all your magic to beat phase 1, you then have to endure phase 2 with just a stick. Good luck with that. Man, a boss this crazy and we're only at number 10. Thank you, China. Number 9, the Yaksha King. Heading now into the late game, we have the Yaksha King. He's the Pokemon Stage 1 evolution of Red Boy, and it's one of the more climactic bosses on the list in terms of story, and indeed in terms of difficulty. The Red Boy fight that precedes this one isn't too similar, as now this guy has two massive blades on his elbows. He spins a lot, and these attacks have crazy range, meaning your timing is more important than ever if you don't want to get sliced. Whatever voice lines he says helps cue you in into what's coming, cutting down some of the guesswork in your reactions. However, the main selling point of this guy's difficulty is the Field of Spikes. He can cause spikes to erupt from the ground after some attacks, either in a long row or just all around the general area, and these also have huge range. You can hide on top of your staff in pillar stance or just run away like a mad monkey, but you have to do something because you can't take too many of those clean shots. This fight feels somewhat similar to Slave Knight Gale Phase 1 or an Orphan of Kos. Chaotic yet calculated, and you'll need to dance well if you want to succeed. I mean, Pigsy does help you for the first part of the fight, but he then dips when Yaksha's health gets to about half. Fucking typical. The Yaksha King may be a hard fight, but when you get it right, it's a very satisfying battle. Number 8, Captain Wise Voice. Going from a boss that I love to a boss that I hate, Captain Wise Voice is a damn pain. He's got only two vulnerable spots, his face and his front right leg. His head is all the way up there, so you're stuck wailing away on his leg. This is certainly a choice of mechanic. I mean, it's right there, so it's not like it's hard to hit, but sometimes it's invulnerable, and all the time, it feels like you do such little damage against it unless you can fully charge up your attacks. Obviously, his head will take much more damage, so knocking him down and saving your strongest charge attacks for the head is the optimal strategy. Of course, Wise Voice won't take this lying down, or at least he'll try not to let you make him take this lying down. He'll swipe with melee, but his more important attacks are his storm of vertical lasers that will cook you if you can't watch your positioning. There's also his quick-fire, more powerful single-shot laser that deals a ton of damage if it connects, so keeping your distance from him isn't optimal either. None of this is overly hard to deal with by itself, it's just that the sheer length of this fight does my head in. He even has the ability to dispel your transformations through certain attacks as if he wasn't annoying enough already, robbing you of a key part of your arsenal. Oh, and how could I forget? This bastard is the one halving your health while you're in the Pagoda Realm, and he does the same here too. Wise Voice is a roadblock, and a freaking annoying one. If you can beat him, you're well prepared for the rest of the game. And speaking of roadblocks... Number 7, the Yellow Wind Demon Sage. This guy is the biggest roadblock in the game. He hits harder than anything you've fought up to this point, faster than anything you've fought up to this point, and you fight in the middle of a giant sandstorm courtesy of him. He strikes creatively with his spear and his wind powers, taking advantage of the fact that you can't fully see him all the time due to the constant sandstorm. He even has a nigh unreadable grab attack that can take out half of your health bar and you can do nothing about it, like a cheapskate bastard. Needless to say, on my first playthrough, he was the boss that killed me the most by quite a margin. I had to really get good and learn the mechanics in order to come out on top. So why is he this low on the list? Well, if you get this handy dandy vessel from the past, you can nullify his sandstorm. This means he can't hide from you out of range, you can see him all the time, and you even get a good chance to get damage in while he's staggered from the activation of the vessel. Yeah, he falls into the category of boss where if you explore the world properly and do certain quests, you can cut his difficulty in half. When you think about it, that's actually a really good way to encourage exploration in the player base. However, because Yellow in Demon Sage is such a bastard to fight without that vessel, I think number 7 is a fair spot for him to stay. Number 6, Yellowbrow. Screw this guy. Yellowbrow is an arrogant blowhard that deems himself worthy of being the next Buddha. Really? Mr. Monobrow over here? I'd have better luck finding enlightenment by following the Cloyne. Unfortunately, he's actually a competent arrogant blowhard. To be clear, I'm only counting the final battle against him, because his first phase is very easy and the macaque is a separate boss fight. This final phase though, this is a rough battle. Yellowbrow is a sorcerer, employing thunderous magic in forms of stomps and numerous strikes over a wide area. He also teleports like a coward and smacks you with an extendable mace flail thing. That's nothing we haven't seen before though. What makes Yellowbrow notable is his special talents. Yellowbrow is almost like a mirror of you in some ways. He constantly turns his skin gold like you're rock solid, causing most of your attacks to just bounce off until it wears off. Except he still gets to move around and attack during this stage. To this day, I'm not fully sure how you counter this. He can even turn your doppelgangers against you, which is really bad when you're in New Game Plus and they're powered up to maximum. He even employs the cheapest trick in the book, mandatory cutscene damage. Like, you get him down to a certain health percentage, then a scripted sequence triggers and you take damage during that. Where's his sense of honor? He also has a good health bar that suits his bulky physique, meaning you'll need to balance all of this magic for a good long while. Yellowbrow is a tricky fight. He's not the strongest, definitely not the fastest, but he makes you think, and that's reason enough for him to nearly crack the top 5. Number 5, Scorpionlord. While taking a stroll through the peaceful Violet Mountain, we happen across a friendly scorpion man. He's clearly struggling with a drinking problem, so we do our part to help him out by smashing it all. He then resolves to smash us in return. I see now it was not a drinking problem but a drinking solution. The Scorpionlord is an aggressive motherfucker with a moveset to match, but he's really not that complicated of a concept. Sure, it's hard to read these several flips and spins he uses as a first resort, including 5, 6, and 7 hit combos. Sure, he actively employs poison to sap away your health and make your healing less effective. Sure, he's got a lot of health, so surviving his onslaught is harder than ever, especially considering the DOT from the poison. Sure, his attack range is deceptive and pretty ludicrous. What, were you expecting a butt? No, Scorpionlord is just an intense fight. He combines pure and simple power, speed, and aggression into a violent flurry of madness. A small consolation is that this chapter is where you get a lot of gear that actually buffs you while you're poisoned, while nullifying the damage, meaning that the right build could help to make the Scorpionlord a little easier. I mean, I didn't do any of that, but it's an option you have. And besides, whatever gear you're wearing won't let you dodge his 7-hit combo any easier. All it takes to beat the Scorpionlord is reflexes, clever resource management, and being able to match him in terms of aggressive combos. Beat him down, and you can proceed further up the mountain to the monsters that lie ahead. Number 4, Yin Tiger. The grumpy blacksmith archetype is nothing new to video games. What is a bit new is them being a tiger, and being arguably stronger than the character they're meant to be smithing for. In addition to upgrading your armor and weapons, Yin Tiger lets you challenge him to a battle. Your reward for winning is a sick new transformation and the ability to equip a third curio. The only downside is trying to get through this tough bastard. Yin Tiger wields an enormous sword and he wields it well. His fighting style could be described as those delayed attack animations from Dark Souls, and not just one. He'll combo these together like crazy. That's almost the design philosophy for every boss in Black Myth Wukong. You dodge fast and often, so enemies come packed with sets of 5 attacks in a row to compensate for it. It's amazing that it actually works so well. In Dark Souls or Elden Ring, this would be seen as excessive and unfair, but Wukong manages to pull it off really well. Of course, you can always immobilize the tiger to catch your breath, but he doesn't take well to that. The hardest part of the fight is when he gets serious and ups his speed. He'll begin blitzing forward with attacks, leaping into the air and slamming down, or vanishing into the leaves, only to re-emerge a second later for a sharp attack, his sword set ablaze with fury, and his strikes cratering the ground below him. It's a wondrous spectacle, and all of these attacks are very dangerous. Yin Tiger is awesome, and he sure as hell makes you work for your victory, but it's a victory that is well worth the trouble. Before we dive into the top 3, let's have a couple honourable mentions. The Dusk Veil is well deserving of a spot on this list, but the death count I racked up to him wasn't any higher than the lower entries on the list, and those deaths didn't feel as devastating. I never felt like he was too strong, only that I wasn't playing correctly, and I took him down in a handful of tries with persistence and a big stick. Giant Shigandang is slow, with fairly obvious weak points and less health than you'd think, but the potential for one-shot damage and the sheer size makes the battle a tense one, and a long one. And Gold Armored Rhino, because it's immune to 75% of my attacks and it hits hard with solid closing speed. Thrust stance exists for a reason, people. Use it. And now, let's wrap up this list with the top 3. Number 3, Yellow Loong. Throughout your adventure, you'll find and defeat dragons. The first 2 dragons are nothing special, masters of lightning that can be dealt with by positioning and knowing the game mechanics. The third Loong you fight on the back of the turtle is a step up, with his shocking prowess giving me a little bit of trouble. But Yellow Loong is by far the hardest among them, and this bastard is only in Chapter 4. He's harder than every boss in Chapter 5 and 95% of the bosses in Chapter 6. It's hard to go into much detail as to why. Like the Scorpionlord, he's pretty simple, he's just exceptionally powerful. He attacks with a lightning spear and employs combos that go on until the heat death of the universe, or at least until the end of your stamina bar or the death of you. He is fast, has deceptive windups, and every strike will trigger the lightning effect on you, increasing the damage you take from then on unless you cure it. His preferred method of attack is flying up into the air and closing in at the speed of lightning to strike you down. Then he does it again. Then he does it again. Then he does it again, and if you don't avoid them all, you'll probably be dead. Dodging these requires split-second reaction timing or just reading his tells very well. Combine this with his ability to call down lightning from the sky and his large health bar, and Yellow Loong is easily deserving of a top 3 spot on the list. What could possibly surpass him? I don't know, probably the final boss of the game. Number 2, the Great Sage's Broken Shell. At the start of the game, we got a taste of Sun Wukong's full power during the tutorial. At the end of our journey, we get to face off against that power in the form of the Great Sage's Broken Shell. After defeating the stone monkey inside the mind of Sun Wukong, it reforms into this dark reflection of the Monkey King, and indeed, a dark reflection of the Destined One, and it prepares to stand in your path as your final challenge. I'll be honest, there's not too much to say about Phase 1. You're basically fighting yourself with no crazy magical skills, and you're still wielding the powerful Chapter 6 exclusive Wukong stance. So just attack hard, dodge harder, and you'll knock him down to size. Phase 2 is the real fight. You've now lost that Wukong stance, so you need to rely on the classic smash stance, and maybe thrust stance if you're desperate. The Great Sage uses every trick you know and then a few more. Rock solid, except when he uses it and you hit him, you're locked into a cutscene's worth of damage. Smash stance, except he first sets it up with staff throws, and then when he smashes it's more like a nuclear blast, sometimes up to 3 smashes in a row. Perfect dodges with after images that explode just like yours. He can use the somersault cloud during combat, a period of time where your duplicates can't actually strike him. Make sure to time them well, or it'll end up being a waste, and you'll need them to make it through this battle. This boss even manages to make the pillar stance actually useful. And with that being said, don't try using it on him unless you want him to dunk your ass. And of course, there's the most famous part of this boss fight. If you try to heal while he's not stunned or busy with another action, this sassy bastard freezes you, steals your gourd, takes a sip, and then just gives it back. To my knowledge, it doesn't notably heal him, but it does deplete your available resources, and you will need as many as you can. This fight is expertly crafted. He throws everything at you in what feels like a chaotic mess of a fight, but it's also designed in such a way that you can counter every move in his arsenal. There's nothing that can't be dodged, avoided, or dealt with in some way. The fight even takes place in the water, letting you use some of the curios that buff you while you're standing in it, a small detail that's a sign of great quality boss design. Not only is this fight a fantastic one, it's also a very challenging one, and a great way to cap off this game. Well, that is unless you go back for the secret ending, where you need to overcome a rematch of godly difficulty. Number 1. Erlang the Sacred Divinity. This should be no surprise to anyone. Imagine fighting the fast and strong god from the tutorial fight, except this time you have a health bar and long cooldowns to worry about. As you can imagine, it's incomprehensibly harder. Erlang is nuts. He's got every attack he showed in the prologue and then a few more. He employs a guard stance that cuts down most of your damage, instead requiring you to deplete his separate defense bar underneath his health bar. You can attack around his guard, but these opportunities are quite rare unless you're lucky or clever. You can shred that defense bar with the Plantain Fan Vessel, but that's only going to be usable once realistically, and you'll want to save it for the second half of this fight, meaning you've got to cut down the first half of his health bar manually, and that's going to be harder if he stays in defense mode. Oh, and don't worry, that guard bar will come back between phases. Erlang is just as fast as you. He hits harder than you, and his variety is insane in both his offense and his defense. He can follow up his spear attacks with that black dog of his, giving you even more to dodge and to waste your stamina on. Oh, and of course he has hard to read grab attacks that take out half your health bar in cutscenes. As you reach certain health percentages, Erlang flies up into the air before performing certain special attacks that take quite a while to complete, meaning that if you mistimed your duplicates and summoned them early, they won't be able to attack him and will likely be gone by the time he lands, leaving you alone. That is assuming that you survived these attacks in the first place, of course. There's a colossal axe, overlapping and sweeping energy beams for multiple seconds, dozens of projectiles all at once, and piercing spear follow-ups. It's a lot to take in. If you are planning to rely on your powerful transformations, don't. Erlang will counter each and every one of your full transformations almost instantly, knocking you out of them. Don't worry, spirit skills are still reliable, if he stays still long enough for you to land the Wandering Wight. As the phases go on, his combos get more varied and even longer, and he integrates magic more frequently, even immobilizing you on occasion, but this all feels fair and balanced. Erlang is very hard, but he is very fair. There's nothing he can do that you can't counter, nothing he does that cannot be fought against, except for the grab, but just dodge the initial hit and you should be fine. Not only is Erlang a titan of difficulty, but he's also a titan of quality, and the battle that comes right after this one is absolutely packed with spectacle. But that one's quite easy, and it's a topic for another day. For now, let's just praise Erlang as the sacred divinity and heaven's mightiest warrior. Thank you everyone for watching this latest installment in the MattTGM boss ranking saga. Black Myth Wukong's expansive boss roster was a pleasure to fight through, and it was full of satisfying challenges, so these 10 standing above the rest is quite the accomplishment. He's hoping we see more games from Game Science that maintain a consistent level of boss difficulty and quality. Or, better yet, how about that Black Myth Wukong DLC? If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more boss rankings, trophy hunts, Yu-Gi-Oh videos, questionable recaps, and more. I've got 4 more videos releasing throughout December, and I think you guys will like what I have in store. And no, I'm 99% sure they won't be commentary videos. If you liked what you saw, consider checking out my Patreon in the description or on the end screen if you want to support the channel further. I promise to come up with some fun rewards once things start picking up over there. With all that said, I think we're done here. Thank you once more for watching, I'll see you next week for another video, and remember, always return to Monkey.